Seokju gets back into his car, and as he drives away, he can't shake the feeling that something big is going on. We then flash back to the moment Seokju crashed into the bike. Once he steps out of the car, he checks on Jin, asking if he's alright. Jin assures him he's fine, despite the injuries to his shoulder and neck. Seokju, however, is concerned, noting that Jin definitely doesn't look okay. Seokju then looks at Blondie, who's sprawled out on the ground, bloodied and seemingly down for the count. Poor Seokju begins to worry that he might have hit him too hard. Jin then tells his friend to just go away. Seokju is initially bewildered by this request, but the serious look in Jin's eyes convinces him to comply. As he drives away, he can't shake the feeling that the man Jin is chasing seems like a typical tourist in SW Corp's database, but he doubts that's the whole story. He then suddenly remembers the wrecked car and starts to worry about how he's going to explain the damage. We return to the shelter, where 006 is tied to a chair, bloodied and looking disheveled. Jin stands over him, calm and collected, and tells him that he can look up now, because he knows he is awake. 006 starts to laugh, saying he never expected our boy to be working with a partner and should have known when he tracked him down so quickly. He admits he made a mistake in assuming he would never work with someone else. Our boy stays silent, and 006 then asks what he wants to know. Jin responds by asking who else received the order to execute him. In response, 006 says he can't be sure, but he probably is the only one because he was the closest to the region, and the timing was right. 006 further explains that the camp can't accept the reality of Jin being alive. They don't want anyone to know his death was faked, so they'll try to eliminate him as quietly as possible. He adds that they will never give up because Jin has caused a lot of damage to the camp, especially to the Mad Dog, who is going to make his best efforts to kill our boy. Blondie then ends the conversation, saying that's all he has to say, and is only giving Jin this information because they were once comrades. He then finally tells Jin to just kill him now. Jin grabs the dagger and begins walking forward. It seems Blondie isn't really afraid of dying, because he'd rather be killed by our boy than by some random enemy. He begins to close his eyes, bracing himself for death. But to his surprise, Jin starts untying him. Blondie asks what the hell Jin is doing, and our boy simply responds that he's freeing his legs. Blondie then rephrases his question, asking why he isn't killing him. Jin then responds by asking why he should. He then goes on to remind Blondie of the reason he should stay alive, which is the same reason he can't escape the camp. Jin explains that he understands what that means because he has lived with a family and knows how it feels, so he suggests Blondie do the same. He also points out that since Blondie has failed his mission, he's as good as dead now, so he better lay low somewhere the camp can't find him. As 006 begins to walk off, he reveals to Jin that his family will be in constant danger, and the camp will ensure any attempts to terminate him. Jin responds that he's already aware of this. He adds that things would have ended differently today if he had targeted his family first, but he plans to guard this life as best as he can. Blondie smiles and says he'll try to throw the camp off his tail as much as he can before disappearing. He then asks one final question, which is the real name of our boy. Jin remains silent for a moment before finally revealing his name. Blondie smirks and also gives out his own name, which is Liam. He then jokes how it took them 10 years to learn each other's names. With this heartfelt exchange, 06 begins walking away, and the next scene takes us to our boy's apartment. Once he arrives home, he quietly opens the door and slips inside, trying not to make a sound. But before he can reach his room, he hears the creak of another door opening. His heart skips a beat as he realizes he's been caught sneaking in. It's his grandpa, standing there with a surprised look on his face, seeing Jin return at such a late hour. Jin gives a warm smile, while carefully hiding the wound on his shoulder, and asks why Grandpa is still awake. The old man explains that he had trouble falling asleep, which is probably because of the coffee he had earlier. With a pleasant smile, he tells Jin to go and rest, pointing out that Jin must be tired as well. With that, Grandpa retrieves back into his room. As Jin is about to head to his own room, he hears his sister calling him. Once he looks at her, she quietly reassures him, saying not to worry too much about Grandpa. He was just waiting up because he's still concerned about whether Jin is having a hard time settling back into life in Korea. She then reminds him that she had left dinner on the table for him, knowing how much he enjoys home-cooked meals. After that little chat, she heads back to her room quietly. Jin moves over to the delicious spread laid out on the table and smiles broadly at the sight. The scene then shifts to Seokju, and when his phone rings, he picks it up and sees a message from Jin. The message is a thank you note for slamming 006 with his car and for providing the pinpoint location. Seeing this, Seokju can't help but feel a bit embarrassed by the compliment from his friend.